Facebook Live, YouTube, wherever you watch this at. Good morning. I, as well as co-host of the Scoop Radio Show. Come on in. I'm gonna be real quick. I've gotten a couple of inboxes asking me about what I thought about the Trump budget. I've done a few posts about it, but not much. So I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys my thoughts pretty quickly. So as you come in the room, do me a favor. Of course, make sure you say hello and hit that share button on the bottom left-hand part of your screen. If you guys have not seen the Trump budget, there have been some massive cuts to it, and a lot of people are complaining and upset about it. Cuts to student loan programs. Hey, Shanita, how you doing? So he's in the proposed budget. Let me call it proposed budget. There are massive cuts to student loans, to certain programs. There's some cuts to Medicare. There's cuts to well, I all of a sudden have a brain cramp. Massive cuts to to Social Security and things like that. And so also there was Ben Carson's comments about poverty. So for those who don't know, the gist of what Mr. Carson said, or Secretary Carson said, is that poverty is by and large a mindset state. So yeah. So come on in, y'all. Come on in, and again, as you come in, do me a favor, hit that share button. What's going on, Big Rob? Guys, if y'all haven't checked out that brother's music, y'all do that. Derek, how you doing, sir? Same thing. If you guys haven't checked out Derek Day, you need to do that. If you need your financial help, you need to check out Shanita, Courtney Slaughter, my hero, who does everything. Dr. Smith, how you doing, sir? So it's good to see you guys. All right. So let me go ahead and jump into this again. Two things. First of all, like I said, if you guys have not seen President Trump's proposed budget, the proposed budget, what it does is, of course, it makes some cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, to Social Security. He also gives a huge. He lowers the tax on the estate tax. So for those of you guys who don't know what that means, the estate tax is the tax that you pay anytime wealth is transferred from one place to another. So when I say one place to another, so say for example, God forbid, well, it's going to happen at some point, something happens to my father and he transfers the amount of money in his retirement or his estate to me, there is a tax that I have to pay that following year on that money that he passes to me. Okay, what part of this budget said is it wants to eliminate that, or what it wants to do is to massively reduce the amount or the percentage that you have to pay. Okay. So those are some of the things that are in there. The only thing that gets an increase would be military spending, and if I remember correctly, it was either $25 million or $25 billion. But a lot of other areas either stay the same or they are being reduced. So there are a lot of people who are upset and saying, "Well, Winfred, what should we do? What do you think about it?" And so I want to respond to that. And then the second thing, like I said, is Secretary Carson, who is the head of HUD, made a comment saying that poverty is a mind state, and a lot of what they want to do in the reduction of what they're giving to social services is right now, if you are on some of the welfare programs, there you have to work 20 hours a week in order to receive benefits. Some people have to work 20 hours a week in order to receive benefits. Well, they want to raise that amount, and then they also want to change the time period that you have to be there. So they say their goal is to get people off of it. All right. So my response to those are very simple. First of all, in part, I agree with Secretary Carson that poverty is in part a mindset. I agree with that. Poverty is in part a mindset. I've said that several times and have been saying that. I think that poverty is a mindset, that people have to first see themselves as wanting more or being more before they can actually move into more. I say that because as a person who agrees wholeheartedly with Scripture, there's several scriptures that I can cite and quote that speak to that. But even more so than that, as a financial person, I understand that having money does not necessarily resolve the poor issue for that person. Okay, so when I say, that's why I say I partly agree with it. Where I disagree with what he's saying is that even if I change my mindset, there is a systematic structure that is in place that makes the actual doing and the thinking sometimes, I won't say impossible, but very, 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 very hard to do. Because if you are a person, for example, who is who is on welfare and receives certain benefits, you'll tell me that I can receive these benefits and I can only work a certain amount of hours if I get these benefits. Well, in order for me to get off of them, I have to make more money. But typically, to make more money, you're going to take my benefits, and I don't necessarily am not going to immediately make enough money to where I don't need that support at all. That's one issue. Another issue is if I'm on this type of assistance because of some, because of where I live, just because I think differently is not going to change the lack of opportunity in the environment that I am. Well, Winfrey, why don't you just move? Well, that's easier said than done, because in order for me to move, I need money to move where I am to a place that's better, and I need a job in order that's going to pay me better, and I can't get that job because if I get that job, then I'm not going to have this help that I need to help get me to the place where I can. So there's a systematic, there's a lot of, if I use like a cobweb or a spider web that even if we want to say, that a person can get off, which they can, that makes it difficult. And in the process of trying to move forward, what can happen is we get so frustrated that some people just say, you know what, it's just a lot easier for me to stay here. And so if we really want people to move off of that system, then we've got to devise a plan that says, okay, I'm going to do, or we're going to do what we need to do to help you along the path of getting there. And then here's the other part of what makes that statement so difficult is you're telling me that in order for me to that I can think differently and I should get an education, but then you turn it and you're cutting programs that will help me get an education because, again, if you cut funding for Pell Grants, if you cut for subsidized lending programs through the federal government, if you then that's going to make it more difficult for me to go to college, because if I come from most people who come from low income, this is a generational thing. So if I come from a family that can afford to send me to school, and I can't get student loans to send me to school, then how am I supposed to pay for it? Oh, okay, so let's just say I do pay for it. I go to community college and scholarships, et cetera, and I do pay for it. Now, when I get out of school, if the average person this year makes $43,000 a year, now you also want to cut the program that says that I can get an income-based repayment program so I can live a somewhat decent lifestyle after I get out of college. So again, now it goes more into this systematic way of making it more difficult or harder for someone just to say, you know what, I think I'm going to be rich and I'm just going to go ahead and be rich. Like it's a lot more difficult than that, and so I don't think that we sometimes take that into consideration. So I think that's the kind of where I say why I disagree. So what is my solution? Here's my, because y'all know if I'm gonna get on here, I'm gonna talk about some solutions. I think that the solutions, first of all, I'm going to say, are not solutions that are easy. But I think what we've got to prepare for, and we've got to prepare other people for, is that there has to be, whether this budget passes or not, because first of all, again, the president can lay out an agenda, but Congress has to approve it, okay? So understand that this is really just what he wants. This is like his wish list. So literally, Congress, the Congressional Budget Office, they all get together, and Congress says either we're going to pass this, it goes to the Senate, goes to the House, goes to the Senate, we're going to pass this, or we're not going to pass it, or we'll pass this part of it and not this part of it. So they'll go through a period of where they go through that, and then it has to be voted on and that type of thing. So if they pass it, or if they don't pass it, some of the same things that I've been saying to you guys are the same things that we need to do. First and foremost, you as an individual, as I'm talking to an adult now, if you are an adult who is not in school or an adult who's in the workforce, the one thing I can tell you is that we've really got to spend this time getting rid of debt. We have to spend serious time, get really serious about the debt that we have. I'm talking about all debt, student loan debt. I'm talking about automobile debt, mortgage debt. All debt needs to be eliminated as soon as possible, because we are also in a period where, if you read yesterday, the Fed is now in the process of selling off some of the things that are on its balance sheet. So what that means is, and we're starting to see where when the Fed meets every quarter, they're raising what's called the prime interest rate. So what they do is, so what that does is that means that prices will start to go up again, okay? That's really the short of it, is that a lot of things that we buy, you'll start to see the prices go up, which for the consumer or for the person who's borrowing is bad, but for the investor, that's great, okay? So we've come out of a period, which is what happens in recession when rates get really low, that if you are an investor, it's bad. Bad in the sense that your investments in your stocks, for people who are on here, you guys can, who are in financial services, you can attest to this. If you are in mutual funds, if you are in like annuities and things like that, CDs, your savings accounts, those rates are not as high, okay? But then you'll get into, as rates go up, what happens is those rates on those same types of products go up, and that's good for your portfolios. It's bad for people who have mortgages or who are buying houses, because now we've gone through about a 7 or 8 year period where people were getting mortgages for 3 and 4 interest rates, 3 and 4% interest rates, where now those rates will start creeping back up, and you'll go back into higher rates, okay? What that also does, again, for the prices of again, now in homes, it's different, because as interest rates go up, the prices of home come down. But that's different. That's what I said. Most of our consumer goods, like food and things like that, as interest rates go up, the cost of it goes up as well, okay? So you've got to spend some serious time getting rid of debt, because this is the time, as rates go back up, you want to be on the side of the investor. So the more debt that you get rid of, it's the more disposable income you have, so you can invest more and take advantage of these interest rates. Now, that's for that person. To the person who is in the situation where you are going to be affected, meaning you might be a student who's ready to go to college and unable to get certain loans, or you might be somebody who is younger and and you're not at that place yet. Again, what I would tell you to do is, once again, you've got to, or what I would recommend is to get a trade, start a business, something that you can do that can bring in cash flow. And then So whether, and I've been telling a lot of young men, listen, before you go to college, you might, for a 4-year institution, you might want to take a year and go to barber college, and learn how to cut hair get an established business in whatever city that you want to go to college in, so you can, cut hair on the days that you don't have classes or things like that. Because again, if you don't have access to student loans, then you've got to find ways to pay for the education you want. And then you also got to really determine, is going to college or is whatever it is that you're trying to do something that you really want to do. Because again, there are a lot of people who, this might not be popular, but don't really need to go to college at this moment. There are a lot of careers, there are a lot of things that you can do that don't require, that you can make good money on, that you might not need to go to college. Now, again, if you want to be a professional, a doctor or something like that, that you have to go to college, that's one thing. But, plumbers make great money. HVAC people make good money. There are some careers out there that don't require a college education, that I would definitely say really determine what you want to do. Because again, the massive amounts of debt, and as rates go up, student loan rates are going to go up too. That carrying that much debt is going to be difficult. But we've got to really understand for both categories I was talking about, is that there's going to be a period of pain, and discomfort, meaning that we're not going to be able to, as we say, try to focus on keeping up with the Joneses. We've got to stop doing that. We've got to say, listen, the most important thing I can do in this season is get rid of debt and create wealth. Get rid of debt and create wealth. Listen, it is not the time to be trying to flex and front on Instagram and on Facebook with your pictures of you doing whatever you do. This is the time to build massive amounts of wealth. I'm going to say it again. This is the time to get rid of debt and build massive amounts of wealth. Even if you say, okay, well, Winfrey, I don't have really any money to do that. This is an awesome time for you to get creative. Get creative by doing, partnerships. You can partner with some people who you and a couple of people might be able to get together and do some things that that you're both good at, and help each other. So maybe, you get 2 of your friends and each of you take 33 1/3% of a business, and you all grow that business together. Perfect example, again, most businesses don't cost a ton of money to start. Now, you need money to grow after a certain period of time, but to start a business does not really, in most instances, take a ton of money. So you can get a business started, again, grow, be creative. You've got, with the invention of social media, you've got a wonderful opportunity to reach people with, for even a smaller amount, if you're using Facebook, Instagram, social, other social media things and ads. And so be creative is what I'm saying. It's don't say that just because you don't have a ton of money, it doesn't mean that you can't be successful. It's going to require some work. It's going to require some creativity. It's going to require you to do a whole ton of, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of, missing parties, a lot of, all that kind of stuff that you might do. But again, this is the time to do it, because, like I said, and everybody's talking about it. Is there a crash going to come? The answer is yes. It's inevitable. A bubble's gonna pop. I don't know where it's gonna be, but there's going to be a bubble. But every time there's a bubble that bursts, that means that, once again, that if those who are positioned properly, meaning who don't have a ton of debt, or if you have debt, it's in places that's no, those who have a ton of debt, because even if it's real estate, the real estate market bust, that's not good. So, who don't have a ton of debt, but have access to, to cash or access to money, are able to accelerate their wealth building. They're able to accelerate. And I wrote an article about this a couple of weeks ago, where I said that when you are that recession is good for people with money. People with money love recession because they can buy stuff for cheap. Meaning, if I'm when the market, the real estate bubble busted, you saw people, and still see people, who are able to buy properties that were normally $350,000. You can buy them for $100,000. And so that's what I mean by your, but you've got to have the $100,000 in order to, or have access to the $100,000 to be able to buy it. In certain communities, there are a lot of communities that that still have a lot of properties that are available, but nobody's buying them because nobody has the money to buy them. So if that person is you and you have the money or you have access to the money, you can do it. So here's what I would do. What I would recommend you do. The other part is, let me take it down another depth, is take a look around you and figure out and ask yourself, what do I have available to me now? So this is a question I had to ask myself. So here's a personal one. You guys know, with Global Drive, I started Global Drive with very little to no money. And it got to a point where I needed money and I didn't have it. And so I started asking myself, okay, in order to take my business to the next level, how can I do that when there isn't a whole lot of money, when I don't have a whole lot of money? And so I had to get creative. I had to, partner with other business owners. I had to do, things that I might not necessarily, would have done if I had money, which was fine. I had to do certain things. I had to work harder. I had to, do free events that I might not necessarily, wanted to do free. I might, I have to do things, again, all for the sake of, growing my business so people can see what we do, who we are, how they can have access to us, how advertising with us is beneficial, stuff like that. And then from there, if in that moment I'm not able to, say, make money from advertising, what are other areas or avenues in which I can make money or bring in revenue during that process? So if that means, apparel, if that means, licensing deals, if that means, again, working, taking my business and working for other, to help other people do their conferences and do media for them, whatever it is, you've got to figure out, again, how you can leverage what you have in order to grow to the next level. And again, it takes creativity. Sometimes it takes patience. Some days it takes waiting for, lightning to strike in a bottle, as I say, because you really don't know sometimes. So that's where the patience comes in. That's where the hustling comes in. When you guys hear me, talking about the focus, hustle, and grind, that's what that comes in. Is it takes a daily drive to make stuff happen, and then appreciating, and here's why I do a terrible job, appreciating the small gains. So for me, when we went from, I'm an A to Z person, but when we go from A to, to J, sometimes you have to say, okay, listen, I'm not at Z, but I'm at J and I'm not at A anymore. So celebrating that so we can keep going and keep the momentum going. So you have to do those types of things, again, because it's not going to happen overnight, but it's definitely a part of the process that we require so we can get better. So again, like I said, I think, I'm not in love with the budget, but I'm also not in love with the however many $1 trillion of a budget deficit that we have as a country. So we knew that there were going to be changes. We knew that there were going to be adjustments. But ultimately, whatever they choose to do, whatever Congress chooses to do, we need to be a part of it. Our voices need to be heard, but we can't allow that to be the determining factor that chooses whether or not we will proceed with the purpose that we have on our lives. You are born with the purpose, and if somebody can move beyond or rise higher than their circumstance, it is you. It's going to take a lot of work. There are going to be a lot of frustrating moments, but ultimately, I can promise you, if you keep your head down, if you stay focused, if you stay committed, if you stay clear on what you are supposed to be doing, then I can promise you, you will see results. Again, it might not be when you want them to, but you will see results. And I can promise you that even in moments when you feel like you're about to drown, as he does Elijah, that he will bring you a raven to give you your daily bread and give you what you need. So I wanted just to encourage you guys, again, don't let what the government is doing, don't let what Secretary Trump does be the determining factor for what you do. We definitely, again, should know. We should react properly. We should be able to learn how to take advantage of the system, but ultimately, and take advantage meaning we should be able to know what it's doing so we can move accordingly. But at the same time, your purpose is what guides you. Who you are is what guides you. Your destiny is what guides you. Your calling is what guides you, not what law is necessarily passed. All right? I love you guys. I appreciate you. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Today is a very big a big day for me. I'm going to my son graduates from kindergarten, so I get to go to that, and I'm kind of excited, which is weird because I don't get real mushy about that kind of stuff, but whatever. So I hope you guys have a good day, and if you haven't downloaded your copy of Nouveau Exposure, do that. NouveauExposure.org. It's free. Download it. If you have not listened to this week's Scoop radio show, listen to that. And if you have not signed up for the R&R Summer Series, it's free. It is our summer teleseries where we're going to help you reset and refocus in the areas of finance, of mental health, of relationships, of spirituality, and of moving past, what was the other one? Finance, mental health and fitness. There you go. So Monday through Friday, it's the week of June 12th. You can go to the Global Drive page and sign up. It's free. All of the things I just told you cost you absolutely nothing. So go do those today. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Love you. And have a good day and stay focused.